We live in interesting times. For the headlines. U.S. President Donald Trump came under fire from Democrats after launching an extraordinary xenophobic attack on 4 progressive Democratic congresswomen. The first patient to be diagnosed with Ebola in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo city of Goma has died. North Korea warns that military drills to be held by the U.S. and South Korea next month will affect proposed working-level nuclear talks between Pyongyang and Washington. More than 820 million people worldwide are still going hungry, according to a new United Nations report. I'm Alma Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us. And now to the news. U.S. President Donald Trump came under fire from Democrats and even some members of his own Republican Party on Monday after launching an extraordinary xenophobic attack on 4 progressive Democratic congresswomen. Take a look.
The one, I look at Omar, I don't know, I never met her. I hear the way she talks about Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda has killed many Americans. She said you can hold your chest out. You can, when I think of America, when I think of Al-Qaeda, I can hold my chest out. When she talked about the World Trade Center being knocked down, some people, you remember the famous some people. These are people that, in my opinion, hate our country. And in one case, you have somebody that comes from Somalia, which is a failed government, a failed state, who left Somalia, who ultimately came here, and now is a congresswoman who's never happy, says horrible things about Israel, hates Jews, hates Jews. It's very simple. One of them kept Amazon out of New York. Tens of thousands of jobs would have been a great thing. And she kept Amazon from going. Would have been a good deal. I mean, could he have made better? Maybe. But tens of thousands of jobs. And New York has not been the same since that happened. It's really hurt New York and New York City. Amazon was going to go. They were going to relocate a major section of their business in New York. She kept them out. That was a terrible thing she did. As far as I'm concerned, if you hate our country, if you're not happy here, you can leave. And that's what I say all the time. That's what I said in a tweet, which I guess some people think is controversial. A lot of people love it, by the way. A lot of people love it. But if you're not happy in the U.S., if you're complaining all the time, very simply, you can leave. You can leave right now. I'm saying that they're socialists, definitely. As to whether or not they're communists, I would think they might be. But this isn't what our country is about. Nevertheless, they're free to leave if they want. And if they want to leave, that's fine. And if they want to stay, that's fine.
President Trump did not identify the targets of his comments by name in his tweet. However, in this tweet later in the day, he said, "When will the radical left congresswomen apologize to our country, the people of Israel, and even to the office of the president for the foul language they've used and the terrible things they have said?" Trump wrote on Twitter. "So many people are angry at them, their horrible, disgusting actions. If Democrats want to unite around the foul language, racist hatred spewed from the mouths and actions of these very unpopular, unrepresentative congresswomen, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I can tell you that they have made Israel feel abandoned by the U.S." He said they hate Israel with a true and unbridled passion, indicating he may have been referring to Omar and Tlaib, who have recently been embroiled in controversies related to the Jewish state. Tlaib, who was born in Detroit, is the first American of Palestinian descent elected to Congress, while Omar, who fled war-torn Somalia as a child and came to the United States as a refugee, is the first black Muslim woman in Congress. Ocasio-Cortez, meanwhile, who was born in New York, is of Puerto Rican ancestry, and Presley, who was born in Cincinnati, is the first African-American elected to Congress from Massachusetts. Meanwhile, several hours after his remarks, the four Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York, Rashida Tlaib of Michigan, Ilhan Omar of Minnesota, and Ayanna Presley of Massachusetts hit back at a news conference. Take a look.
The grace, the empathy.
He's launching a blatantly racist attack on 4 duly elected members of the United States House of Representatives, all of whom are women of color. This is the agenda of white nationalists.
As far as I'm concerned, if you hate our country, if you're not happy here, you can leave. But if you're not happy in the U.S., if you're complaining all the time, very simply, you can leave. You can leave right now.
The grace, the empathy, the compassion.
This president does not know how to make the argument that Americans do not deserve health care. He does not know how to defend his policies. So what he does is attack us personally.
Meanwhile, Senate Minority Leader Charles Schumer blasted Republicans over the silence with which many have responded to President Trump's tweets telling 4 Democratic Congresswomen of color to go back to their home countries. Republicans have largely remained silent about President Trump's comments, which initially took place when they were scattered across the country over the weekend. Let's listen in again.
The President's comments demand condemnation from all corners of the political spectrum, all corners. But it's become frighteningly common for many of my Republican colleagues to let these moments sail by without saying even a word. Republican leadership, especially, rarely criticizes the President directly, even in a situation like this that so clearly merits it. So I'm left to wonder if the silence of many Republicans in the wake of President Trump's xenophobic tweets is out of embarrassment or agreement. Both are inexcusable. But the President just walked out of the White House a few hours ago and doubled down on his racist comments. My Republican friends, he's not backing off. Where are you when something this serious, this bigoted, this un-American happens? If you're saying to yourselves, well, he got us our big tax cut. Well, he's taking regulations off big corporations. Well, he pulled out of the Paris Accords. We have to go along with this racism. You're making a deal with the devil.
Meanwhile, also in his appearance earlier Monday, President Trump had sought to deflect criticism about his tweets, even as he made it clear he stood behind them, saying it was House Speaker Nancy Pelosi who was the real racist. Take a look. Pointed to a tweet in which Ms. Pelosi said his statements about the Congresswomen confirmed that his Make America Great Again slogan has always been about making America white again. When @Real Donald Trump tells 4 American Congresswomen to go back to their countries, he reaffirms his plan to make America great again has always been about making America white again. Our diversity is our strength and our unity is our power. Here's President Trump.
Well, that's just a very racist statement, somebody that would say that. So Speaker Pelosi said, make America white again. Let me tell you, that's a very racist statement. I'm surprised she'd say that. John, go ahead.
In other news, North Korea said looming U.S.-South Korea military drills could impact the proposed resumption of nuclear talks between Pyongyang and Washington and hinted that it could reconsider its moratorium on nuclear testing. It was the first statement from Pyongyang on the talks since U.S. President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un agreed to their resumption at an impromptu meeting in the demilitarized zone in June, following months of deadlock between the two sides. An unnamed foreign ministry spokesperson said in comments carried by state news agency KCNA described next month's drills as clearly a breach of a joint statement signed by the leaders in Singapore and hinted that Pyongyang may resume weapons tests in response. The official also said that, quote, with the U.S. unilaterally reneging on its commitments, we are gradually losing our justifications to follow through on the commitments we made with the U.S. as well. There are close to 30,000 U.S. troops stationed in South Korea, and their annual drills with tens of thousands of South Korean soldiers have always infuriated the North, with Pyongyang condemning the maneuvers as provocative rehearsals for invasion. But following the Singapore summit, President Trump announced the suspension what he called Washington's very provocative joint military exercises with South Korea. A smaller scale version of the exercises was last held in March, with more scheduled for August. After nearly a decade of progress, the number of people who suffer from hunger has slowly increased over the past 3 years. And that is according to a new United Nations report released on Monday. The State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World 2019 says that about 1 in every 9 people globally suffer from hunger today. Considering all people in the world affected by moderate levels of food insecurity, together with those who suffer from hunger, it is estimated that over 2 billion people do not have regular access to safe, nutritious, and sufficient food, including 8% of the population in Northern America and Europe. Let's listen in.
2 billion people. This is the highest number that I ever heard in my life. And I'm on this business for a long time. What that means, that let's say if we talk about 7 to 8 billion people in the world, a quarter to 30% are not sure that they will have enough money to feed themselves or their family.
We know if we can address food security, we mitigate the issues of migration and school issues, and the list goes on. So this is not just some small issue. This is the #1 issue on earth today, food security. Failure to address it, there will be a global consequence.
Launched on the margins of the high-level political forum currently underway in New York, the report breaks down statistics by region and shows that hunger has risen almost 20% in Africa's sub-regions.
Around the world, hunger is on the rise, and that's the sad news, with significant implications for food security, nutrition, and public health. But as we've heard, in the past 3 years, the number of people who suffer from hunger has increased to more than 820 million people. And the report highlights regions such as Africa in particular, which is facing the highest prevalence of undernourishment at 20%, while Latin America and the Caribbean, Asia and Western Asia are also showing a continuous increase. And it's linked in part to climate change. Globally, temperatures are rising, and extreme weather and climate events are becoming much more frequent and severe. And it underscores the immense challenge of achieving zero hunger by 2030.
At the same time, overweight and obesity continue to increase in all regions, particularly among school-aged children and adults.
We simply cannot afford to lose out on the human capital that these children represent because of poor nutrition, which is why we must adopt a life course approach to nutrition from the earliest days. Nutritional support for pregnant women, breastfeeding for newborns, regulations around food labeling, food standards for schools, and national food guidelines. Poverty reduction programs that take good nutrition into account, advocacy programs to promote healthy diets that limit the consumption of harmful fats, salts and sugars, and change the public education and change food systems for fresh, diverse food for all.
In other news, Italian police seized an air-to-air missile, machine guns, and rocket launchers during raids sparked by an investigation into far-right extremist groups, a huge haul of weapons that authorities said was almost without precedent. Police arrested 3 people, including Fabio Del Berriolo, 50, a former candidate for the neo-fascist Forza Nuova party, whose home was found to contain a huge stash of arms as well as neo-Nazi propaganda and Hitler memorabilia. They also found automatic assault rifles that they described as latest generation among the cache. The missile, 3.54 meters or 11 feet long, was made in France, and Del Berriolo had been hoping to sell it for 470,000 euros, according to Italian media reports. The missile was without explosive charge but rearmable by people specialized in the field, according to police. The other arrests were a Swiss 42 and an Italian 51 accused of holding and marketing the missile, which was found by police at a warehouse near the small Riva Nazzano Term airport in the Pavia province. The raids were the result of a police probe into Italian extremists known to have joined pro-Russian rebels fighting in Ukraine. Messages intercepted by the police led them to investigate Del Berriolo, who had sent photographs of the missile for sale through the WhatsApp messaging service. And then they put him under surveillance before raiding his home and finding the stash of weapons, including a Scorpion machine gun, 306 firearm parts, and 20 bayonets. His collection included street signs from the Nazi era, including one reading Adolf Hitler Platz. Torrential monsoon rain swept away homes and triggered landslides across South Asia, affecting millions of people and claiming at least 180 lives, according to officials on Tuesday. The monsoon is crucial for irrigation and groundwater supplies in the impoverished region, home to a fifth of the world's population, and brings relief after the unforgiving summers. But the downpours, which stretch from June to September, can turn deadly and have wreaked havoc again this year across India, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Pakistan-administered Kashmir, with people, dwellings, and boats in remote, low-lying areas washed away. At least 5 children drowned in Bangladesh Monday, taking the toll in the country to 34, including 18 hit by lightning and 7 who drowned after their boat capsized in choppy waters in the Bay of Bengal. Hundreds of thousands have been marooned by floodwaters in the country's north, with one of the major Himalayan rivers, the Brahmaputra, over a meter or 40 inches above the danger level, according to officials. In Nepal, meanwhile, at least 67 people have died, although floodwaters have started receding. Images showed rescuers using inflatable dinghies to evacuate families trapped in flooded houses, and health experts are warning of possible outbreaks of waterborne diseases and called for international help. Nearly 50 people, meanwhile, have been killed in India, with 2 eastern states, Assam and Bihar, which borders Nepal, bearing the brunt of the deluge. A strong earthquake struck off the Indonesian holiday island of Bali on Tuesday, according to the USGS, causing residents to flee their homes and damaging several buildings. The quake, which had a magnitude of 5.7, hit at 7:18 a.m. local time and was centered 82.1 kilometers southwest of the island's capital, Denpasar, according to the USGS. The tremor, which was felt as far away as Banyuwangi on the neighboring island of Java, struck relatively deep at 91 kilometers, and no tsunami warning was issued. Photos circulated by Indonesia's disaster agency showed minor damage to shop fronts and temples on the predominantly Hindu island. More than 20 homes, schools, temples, and offices were moderately damaged by the tremor, predominantly in Badung district near the tourist hub of Kuta, Bali. No casualties have been reported in the disaster. Indonesia experiences frequent seismic and volcanic activity due to its position on the Pacific Ring of Fire, where tectonic plates collide. On Sunday, a powerful 7.3 magnitude earthquake hit the remote Maluku Island chain in eastern Indonesia, killing 3 people and damaging nearly 1,000 houses. The first patient to be diagnosed with Ebola in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, the city of Goma, has died. That's according to the governor of North Kivu province on Tuesday. The case, the first in a major urban hub in the region's nearly year-old epidemic of the disease, has sparked deep concern in neighboring Rwanda and at the United Nations. The patient has been described as an evangelical preacher who had traveled from Goma to Butembo, one of the towns hardest hit by the outbreak. Now, while he was there, he preached at 7 churches and regularly touched worshippers, including the sick, before taking the bus back to Goma last Friday, according to the health ministry. More than 1,600 people have died from Ebola since August 1, when the hemorrhagic virus erupted in North Kivu and spread to neighboring Ituri. Health experts fear outbreaks of the contagious disease in a major city. Goma is a border city of about 1 million people located on the northern shore of Lake Kivu, adjacent to Rwanda. And there is a high number of daily border crossings involving workers and people who have jobs or homes on the other side of the frontier. The UN's World Health Organization warned the Goma case was a potential game changer in the fight to roll back the outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Yesterday, WHO was not notified of 2 very sad developments in the Ebola outbreak in DRC. The first was a case of Ebola in the city of Goma, in a pastor who had traveled from Butembo. Although this is a very concerning development, it's one that we and the government have expected and prepared for. Around 3,000 people have been vaccinated, and the pastor is receiving care at an Ebola treatment center run by the Ministry of Health and MSF. The second was that 2 Ebola responders were murdered in their home in Beni. Just when we start to get control of the virus in one area, it appears in another. And violence and insecurity continue to undermine the response. We're dealing with one of the world's most dangerous viruses in one of the world's most dangerous areas. Every attack makes it more difficult to trace contacts, vaccinate, and perform safe burials. Every attack gives Ebola an opportunity to spread. Ebola gets a free ride in each and every attack. On top of that, community mistrust, political instability, and the spread of myth and misinformation have significant barriers.
In other news, 50 years ago on Tuesday, 3 American astronauts set off from Florida for the moon on a mission that would change the way we see humanity's place in the universe. The crew's surviving members, Buzz Aldrin and Michael Collins, are set to reunite at the same launch pad on Tuesday, the start of a week-long series of events commemorating Apollo 11. Their commander and the first man on the moon, Neil Armstrong, passed away in 2012. But Aldrin and Collins, 89 and 88 respectively, will meet on Tuesday U.S. time at precisely 9:32 a.m. at the Kennedy Space Center's Pad 39A to kick off the festivities. Their spacecraft took 4 days to reach the moon before its lunar module, known as Eagle, touched the lunar surface on July 20, 1969. Armstrong emerged a few hours later. Collins remained in lunar orbit in the command module Columbia, their only means of returning back to Earth. Aldrin has remained relatively more elusive but has also taken part in a few events, including a gala dinner last Saturday where the cheapest ticket cost $1,000. Aging but active on Twitter and always seen in stars and stripes socks, Aldrin has faced health scares and family feuds culminating in a court case over finances, which was settled in March. On Tuesday, he will be the undeniable star of the show as the second band to have stepped foot on the moon. Only 4 of the 12 men who have done so remain alive. Despite the festivities, neither the U.S. nor any other country has managed to return a human to the moon since 1972, the year of the final Apollo mission.
Yes, indeed. They've got the flag up now, and you can see the stars and stripes.
Eagle News International will be right back. Stay tuned.
Sa gitna ng dilim, ako ang mata sa sahing papawid. Ako ang dilat sa tuwing ang bayan ko ay tulog ng mahimbing. Ang aming buhay handang ialay para sa bayan. Kayo'y handang maglingkuran.
Join us in celebrating the 72nd anniversary of the Philippine Air Force.
Welcome back. The Department of Trade and Industry is pushing for the passage of a bill institutionalizing the government's program of providing affordable financing for micro, small, and medium enterprises, or MSMEs, in the 18th Congress. In a speech delivered during the National MSME Summit 2019 on Tuesday, DTI Secretary Ramon Lopez said the proposed P3, or Pondo sa Pagbabago at Pag-Asenso Program bill, aims to institutionalize the P3 fund as a measure to eliminate the need for informal lending sources such as 5/6 lending through the provision of collateral-free microloans. Take a look.
Okay, MSME DP, strategic goal number 2, delivering affordable money access to poor Filipinos. Following the President's directive to kill the 5/6 money lending system, to provide an easy access, no collateral microfinancing fund for our micro MSMEs, the government set up the Pondo sa Pagbabago at Pag-Asenso. We started this with the President last, I think, December 2016. So nag-umpisa na noong 2017. As of May 2019, yung pondo po na 2 billion, ang napautang na 3 billion. Bakit? Kasi napaikot na, nababayaran, and nare-relent pa natin. 3 billion na ang napahiram. They were released to 83,000 beneficiaries. Ganun kadami. And this year, with the new budget, madadagdagan na naman po ng, ang final, ang alam ko, 1.5 billion pesos. So that will grow to another, that 2 billion will now grow to 3.5 billion pesos. And of this amount, 7.5 million were released to even borrowers from Malawi. 457 borrowers in Malawi as part of the Malawi Rehabilitation Program. 26 million to 335 families of soldiers killed or wounded in action. So gusto ng Presidente natin tulungan talaga yung mga naaapi, nahihirapan. Kaya meron ding programa special dyan. Meron pa nga equity financing. Wala na munang babayaran in 2 years, no interest. Equity financing for those killed in action and wounded in action families. And 3.1 million to 108 borrowers dun sa mga na-displaced nung closure of Boracay. What we always do is we always partner with the private sector so that we can spread out the service immediately. So we don't believe in building a large bureaucracy in government. Kailangan yung tie up with those who are already doing it. So in the pipeline for accreditation are conduits from 8 more provinces. So 80 provinces, practically the entire country. Next is, I want to highlight the recently signed 11057, known as the Personal Property Security Act. Ang daming batas. But these are all the policy reforms I was telling you earlier. This law will boost access to credit. Kasi in short, ito po in partnership with the IFC, International Finance Corporation of the World Bank, wherein hindi mo kailangan ng hard collateral like land. Ibig sabihin, movable collaterals, non-traditional collaterals such as your account receivable, inventory, yung warehouse receipts, crops, livestock, machinery, and equipment can now be considered as chattel mortgages, and you can borrow against those. We at DTI believe that this will greatly impact our getting credit indicator dito po sa ease of doing business.
Secretary Lopez also assured that the end goal of the enactment of the P3 bill, along with the amendments of the Magna Carta for MSMEs, would be more programs and services to support more MSMEs. In other news, Harare residents described the impact of the inflation on their daily life as the annual rate hit 175% in June, according to official data. Zimbabwe's annual inflation rate hit 175% in June, according to official data, and it stoked fears of a return of the hyperinflation that wiped out savings 10 years ago when the economy collapsed. Supplies of essentials such as bread, medicine, and petrol have regularly run short in the country as price increases hit their fastest pace since the government was forced to abandon the Zimbabwe dollar in 2009. Take a look.
What is essential? I think it's also making us a less consumptive population, because now you have to really see what is necessary. Do I need this? Maybe not.
Zvinhu zviri kutotiomera nekuti mari chaita kana tisina mari yekuti uritengesa kura kwari kuita zvinhu zviri kutotishupa kuti tichafambawo sei. Zvakutoona kuti vane mari yakawanda ndova kutokwanisa kuritenga isingatikwanisi kuritenga.
Vanhu vari kutenga bhozi yenyu zvafanana nokuti nyange dei vanhu vanobikawo kana kuti anongonodyawo nemhuri yake vari vaviri vatatu vanotendera kutengawo kamafuta kadiki diki kana kemukabhodhoro kadiki. Bhozi anenge achida kungosusumidzwa kwemazuva maviri matatu achitsvagawo imwe mari, zvinhu zvichitofamba zvakadaro.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin insisted that he isn't comfortable with Facebook launching its own digital currency, Libra. He said it could be misused by money launderers and terrorist financiers, as other cryptocurrencies have been. Take a look.
The Treasury Department has expressed very serious concerns that Libra could be misused by money launderers and terrorist financiers. Cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin have been exploited to support billions of dollars of illicit activity like cybercrime, tax evasion, extortion, ransomware, illicit drugs, human trafficking. We will not allow digital asset service providers to operate in the shadows and will not tolerate the use of the cryptocurrencies in support of illicit activities. Treasury has been very clear to Facebook, Bitcoin users, and other providers of digital financial services that they must implement the same anti-money laundering and countering financing of terrorism, known as AML-CFT safeguards, as traditional financial institutions. As the President has said, Bitcoin is highly volatile and based on thin air. We are concerned about the speculative nature of Bitcoin and will make sure that the U.S. financial system is protected from fraud.
Facebook last month unveiled its plans for Libra, widely regarded as a challenger to dominant global player Bitcoin. Libra is expected to launch in the first half of 2020. It's designed to be backed by a basket of currency assets to avoid the wild swings of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Mnuchin said the U.S. Treasury welcomes responsible innovations that can improve the efficiency of the financial system. But he added, quote, "Our riding goal is to maintain the integrity of the financial system and protect it from abuse." He also said U.S. regulators have met with Facebook officials on this question and how Facebook can protect against the new virtual coin being used for criminal activity. Commenting on Facebook's claim that Libra could lower costs and help people without access to traditional financial services, Mnuchin said this. Again, let's listen in.
We obviously have concerns with the privacy issues. There's been items in the press about potential settlements. I'm not going to comment on that. But obviously, the regulators, and one of the regulators, as I've said, most people haven't heard on FinCEN. So one of the reasons I wanted to explain this is whether they're banks or whether they're non-banks, they're under the same regulatory environment for FinCEN, and we will hold them accountable. And they're going to have to convince us of very high standards before they have access to the U.S. financial system.
Self-driving carts, which can carry your shopping or pack shelves, are becoming more widespread in France. Formerly known as automatic guided vehicles, these new machines have been designed to work around the clock and provide a safer work environment on warehouse floors. Take a look.
Oui, j'ai fait 2 fois, je me suis trompée. Ça va pas changer mes habitudes pour faire des courses, mais ça va améliorer du fait que j'ai pas à porter. Ça peut aller jusque chez moi, c'est ça qui est intéressant.
Il va suivre toujours la même personne. Le robot, par contre, quand il y a une foule dense, il va avoir du mal à se déplacer pour une raison très simple, c'est que le robot, tout est codé pour qu'il ne fasse mal à personne. On a une barrière de sécurité tout autour de lui qu'on appelle un pare-choc virtuel en fait.
Le chariot, il arrive à se géolocaliser grâce à son laser de navigation et sa cartographie qu'on lui a donnée au préalable. Et grâce à son circuit qu'on a dessiné, il arrive à déplacer une palette d'un point A à un point B.
Eagle News International will be right back. Stay tuned. Like clockwork, hundreds of villagers gather each morning and afternoon on Africa's third largest body of fresh water, the Lake Malawi, to help sort out fish or buy some from the 72 boats that transverse the waters daily. But the fish numbers are dwindling and locals are blaming climate change and overfishing. Take a look.
Chwa kusindonya kumene ndikoze kunena nkwena kuti nthawi imene kale mvula imene imagwera iti ndi masiku ano wazikusiyana kwambiri fuka mvula pene ikumatha kubwera moononga kale kati mvula imabwera mwa ubwino chana ndi masiku ano ndiyo sikunyiza kuti nyengo ikulani kuti nyengo inasintha.
Meanwhile, people are fleeing the floods from monsoon rains in the northeastern Indian state of Assam, where heavy rains have killed several people so far and affected over 800,000. Take a look.
बानपानी घरते আজি 4 दिन धरि सरकाৰৰ ৰিলিফ পোৱা নাই ত্ৰিপাল পোৱা নাই দমকলৰ অসুবিধা পানী ব্ৰহ্মপুত্ৰ পানী খাই আছো এতিয়া চৰকাৰৰ ওচৰত মানে প্ৰাৰ্থনা কৰি আছো কিবা যদি চৰকাৰ দিয়ে আমি পাছিম গুটেই খোৱা মানুহে মানে অসুবিধা পৰি গৰু বাছুৰ লৈ
A special 50-wagon train carrying 2.5 million liters of water arrived in the Indian city of Chennai as the southern hub reels under one of its worst shortages in decades. 4 special trains a day have been called up to bring water to Chennai, India's 6th most populous city, from Vellore, some 80 miles away, to help battle the drought. Chennai has seen only a fraction of the rain it usually receives during June and July. The city of 4.9 million people also needed trains to bring water in when it suffered a similar crisis back in 2001. The bustling capital of Tamil Nadu state normally requires at least 825 million liters of water a day, but authorities are currently only able to supply 60% of that. Now, with temperatures regularly hitting 40 degrees Celsius or 104 degrees Fahrenheit, reservoirs have run dry and other water sources are dwindling further each day. Meanwhile, the Pacific's low-lying reef islands are likely to change shape in response to climate change, rather than simply sinking beneath rising seas and becoming uninhabitable as previously assumed, according to new research. Atoll nations such as Tuvalu, Tokelau, and Kiribati lie only a few meters above sea level and are considered the world's most vulnerable to global warming, with fears their populations will become climate refugees as waters rise. But a study published this week found that such islands, morphodynamic ally, respond to the environment because they are composed of the skeletal remains of tiny reef-dwelling organisms rather than solid rock. The researchers said evidence that such islands slowly change like shifting sands had profound implications for climate change planning in affected nations. Co-author Murray Ford of Auckland University said low-lying reef islands appeared more resilient than previously thought. He said, quote, the effects on individual islands will vary so that while some areas may become uninhabitable, other areas will keep pace with rising seas. The study conducted by researchers from New Zealand, Britain and Canada was published by the Geological Society of America this week. In other environment news, in the Italian capital of Rome, piles of rubbish in the streets worry medical experts and exasperate residents, while tourists are wondering how a European capital can put up with such a smelly burden. Take a look.
Dire che con questo caldo, quindi con questa situazione, ci poteva essere un allarme di natura igienica, cioè nel senso che bisognava stare attenti per evitare che poi si potesse poi trasformare magari in un allarme sanitario. Quindi noi proprio meglio prevenire, come si dice, che curare, per cui siamo intervenuti avvisando chi? Avvisando tutti quelli che erano gli attori istituzionali del sistema. Quindi...
Questa è la capitale più disorganizzata del mondo, per tutto, anche per i bus, tutto. Se c'è qualcosa che funziona male a Roma, quindi stiamo a posto.
And the news continues here on Eagle News International. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Balisin is not only beautiful, it is magnificently sustainable. But beyond its natural beauty is Balisin's commitment to innovate to maintain its uniqueness in this breathtaking part of the world.
In partnership, especially with Globe, na-fulfill namin yon. Kaya in probably 98% of the island, makita mo pag you communicate, meron signal, may Wi-Fi ka. For so many years we were groping, how do we solve? Yung pala, may isang kumpanya lang pala kakausapin namin, pasok na kami doon, okay na. And we've been very, very happy with the partnership with Globe My Business. Anyone who comes here, I can guarantee you are in the most secured place. Better than any secured island in this country.
It's just week 5 of the CFL regular season, but the Edmonton Eskimos sealed the season series with a 33-6 victory over the BC Lions. Anthony Sevilla reports.
Week 5 in CFL action ended with a win on the road for the Edmonton Eskimos over the BC Lions 33-6 at BC Place. Eskimos quarterback Trevor Harris outperformed Lions quarterback Mike Riley. Harris threw for 2 touchdowns on 22 for 28 pass attempts. Riley struggled to generate offense for the Lions, unable to reach the end zone while also giving up an interception. The Edmonton Eskimos outbattled the BC Lions for the second straight week, with huge contributions from the Edmonton's defensive line. After collecting 7 sacks against the Lions in Week 2, BC had no answer for Edmonton as the Lions' offensive line gave up another 4 sacks in Week 5. Edmonton's head coach Jason Moss gave credit to the physicality and tenaciousness of his team's defensive unit.
I just think our guys, we have some good schemes up front that we put in during the week, some different stunts and different things, whatnot, but I think physically our guys just get after people, and that's been our moniker all year. They are tenacious, all of them, and our secondary is doing their jobs too, so it's making the quarterback hold it a bit, and then when he's doing that, our guys are, efforting the way they are, good things happen.
Edmonton's offensive unit also played a huge role in the Week 5 victory, especially from their quarterback Trevor Harris. Harris threw for 2 touchdowns on 276 yards, struggled with an injury in the first half, but was able to shrug it off in the second half to lead his team. Eskimos head coach also acknowledged his quarterback's performance and his efforts to return in order to lead his team.
It didn't look good for him coming back, and he gutted it out the second half, put another knee brace on and gutted it through. And, you got to be, when you're a leader, when you're one of your team leaders is willing to do that, put his body on the line, it says a lot of things, and for him tonight that was tremendous. So very, very proud of him to lay it all on the line tonight. We talked about it during the week. We said superhuman effort to go in there and take something from somebody, leave it all on the field, and I think Trevor did that tonight.
The Lions head coach Devon Claybrooks showed his disappointment on his team's performance and addressed what changes need to be made and his faith on the team heading forward.
Well, we're going to have to do some self-reflection on ourselves as a staff and everything, and we got to sit down and we got to decide and determine that who's executing and who's not. And if the guys are not executing, this is professional football. So if they're not executing, then we got to revisit that, and we got to do that, and we'll explore those options as well. It's an embarrassment to us and it's an embarrassment to this organization to put something out there like that on film when it comes down to base things.
The Edmonton Eskimos gained the upper hand against the BC Lions once again, stopping their former quarterback Mike Riley from generating any offense for the Lions, limiting him to just 17 for 26 on pass attempts while protecting the end zone. The Eskimos improved to 3-1 while the Lions find themselves last in the West Division playoff race. I'm Anthony Sevilla for Eagle News, 1/25.
To London now, the PhillyFest Culture Festival showcased the Philippines' best features. Here's a glimpse from Daniel Santos.
I am Daniel Santos and I am here at the PhillyFest 2019, a student-led event organized by the University College of London Filipino Society. Let us see what there is on offer.
The first ever PhillyFest was full of atmosphere, buzzing and full of life, filled by many people, Filipino and non-Filipino alike. There are several performances showcasing Filipino talent, songs in the Filipino language and in English too. Not only were there performances, there were games too to keep everyone entertained. Free merchandise was also given, which kept people happy. One of the favorite pastimes of Filipinos is eating. There are food and drink stalls dotted around with lots of people queuing to taste Filipino drinks and food. Overall, this was a great day to celebrate the Filipino culture.
Reporting at University College of London, PhillyFest 2019, I am Danielle Santos and I am 1/25.
Thank you, Daniel. And that's it for tonight's broadcast. For everyone here on Eagle News International, I'm Alma Angeles, always 1/25.